Imagine a town where the setting sun doesn't bring peace, but a paralyzing, cold-blooded terror that locks every door and loads every shotgun. In the spring of 1946, the Twin Cities of Texarkana became the hunting ground for a faceless predator who struck under the pale glow of the moon. He didn't just kill, he tormented, leaving a trail of broken bodies and shattered lives in secluded lovers' lanes and quiet farmhouses. This is the story of the Phantom Killer, the man who turned a peaceful community into a living nightmare, and then vanished into the shadows of history. Remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime, leaving behind a mystery that still haunts the piney woods today. The nightmare began on a cold February night, February 22nd. Jimmy Hollis and Jeanne Larey were parked on a secluded road. Their evening was shattered when a man, his face hidden by a grotesque burlap sack, forced them out of their car at gunpoint. He didn't want their money. He wanted to inflict pain. Jimmy was brutally beaten with the heavy barrel of a pistol. Jeanne was subjected to a terrifying assault before the killer fled, spooked by approaching headlights. They survived, but Texarkana's peace was dead. Exactly 1 month later, the Phantom struck again, and this time, he left no survivors. On March 24th, bodies were discovered. Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore had been shot in the back of the head with a .32 caliber revolver, their lives extinguished instantly. The scene was disturbing. Evidence suggested they had been moved. Polly Ann had been assaulted, a signature of the monster stalking the night. The town began to whisper, fear taking root in the hearts of every parent and teenager in the area. The violence escalated in April. On the 14th, 2 teenagers, Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker, went missing after a high school dance. Their bodies were found the next morning in Spring Lake Park, a popular spot that was now a crime scene. Paul had been shot multiple times, and Betty Jo's body was found nearly 2 miles away from their car. The .32 caliber weapon had returned, and the brutality of the scene was beyond comprehension. The realization hit Texarkana. There was a serial killer in their midst, a phantom who could strike anywhere, at any time, and the police were seemingly powerless to stop him. By May, the panic had reached a fever pitch. The streets of Texarkana were deserted after dark. Local hardware stores couldn't keep guns or ammunition on the shelves. On May 3rd, the killer changed his tactics, moving from lovers' lanes to a quiet farmhouse in Miller County. Virgil Starks was sitting in his living room, reading the newspaper, when 2 shots rang out through the front window, killing him instantly. His wife, Katie, heard the shots and ran to the phone, only to be shot twice in the face by the attacker standing just outside. Miraculously, she managed to crawl out the back door and run across a field to a neighbor's house for help. The Phantom had invaded the sanctity of the home, and now, no one was safe. The investigation that followed was one of the largest in Southern history. Legendary Texas Ranger Manuel Lone Wolf Gonzaullas arrived. His charismatic presence and silver-plated pistols offered a glimmer of hope to the terrified citizens. Hundreds of suspects were questioned, and the town was flooded with reporters from across the country, eager to capture the Moonlight Murders. Yet despite the massive manhunt and FBI involvement, the killer remained elusive. Leads turned into dead ends. Confessions from attention seekers only muddied the waters. The Phantom seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. One name, however, would eventually rise to the top of the suspect list: Youell Swinney, a career criminal. Swinney was linked to the crimes by his girlfriend Peggy, who provided chilling details only the killer could have known. But the case was far from simple. Peggy's story changed multiple times, and because she married Swinney, she couldn't testify against him. Without her testimony or a smoking gun, authorities were unable to charge him with the murders. Swinney was eventually sent to prison for life for car theft, and many believe the killing stopped because the Phantom was finally behind bars. Decades have passed since that bloody spring of 1946, but the shadow of the Phantom Killer still looms large over Texarkana. The case remains officially unsolved, a cold reminder of a time when a whole town lived in fear of the sunset. The story has been immortalized in film and folklore, most notably in the town that dreaded sundown. But the real horror lies in the fact that the man behind the burlap mask may have taken his secrets to the grave. The piney woods of East Texas still hold their breath when the moon is full, wondering if the phantom is still out there, waiting in the dark. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.